Happy Halloween. It's probably not Halloween when you're watching this because I'm starting this at 11:56 p.m. So it is 4 minutes until the end of Halloween here. But I just got home like 30 minutes ago. And I figured, hey, why not do a spooky Halloween stream? The hair is all over my eyes. I really need a haircut. But I figured why not? It's something I don't do often. You just hop on and do stuff. Gonna try and find some spooky stuff to do. Look, I'll probably just read stuff off of our No Sleep for no reason, maybe for like an hour or so. Send off Halloween. It's been not a good Halloween. Usually isn't for me, honestly. But no reason I can't try to turn that around. And I do have the ability to pop-up monitor, which will just break everything. But then I'll miniature like boom, and then that's all good. So if there's something that requires it being seen, that's something I can very much do. Everything is working on Streameroonie over here. So I guess I'll just see what's on Arno Sleep. I killed my best friend when I was 11. I've regretted it every Halloween since. 30 years ago today, my neighbor's son disappeared. Sure. This one's tagged as, not this one that I clicked on, but there's another one that's tagged as child abuse, so I'm probably gonna skip that one. The Last Bride, Siri's Scariest Birthday Tape I've ever seen, Part 2. I mean, well, why not? That one seems pretty good. Let's start with, how long is 30 years ago? Okay. Is that an image? It's a link. Okay. So I found something. I don't know what it is. I don't know if this is going to be good. But I figure it doesn't hurt to give it a read. So this is from Our No Sleep. I don't know if this will go up on YouTube or not, honestly. But regardless, I'll need my headphones for this. I'll just read this and see what happens. Let's see what happens, like something's gonna happen. See if it's good. Happy Halloween. It's 2 minutes till Halloween. I hope you enjoyed your Halloween, let me just say that. I hope you're having a good time. I hope that whenever you're watching this, you're just in the mood for some spooks. Let's do some spooks. 30 years ago, my neighbors across the street, Mr. and Mrs. Stein, endured a terrible loss. Their son, Adam, disappeared on Halloween. It was assumed he was kidnapped, as there was a rash of kidnappings in the area at the time. The kidnapper was never found, though. Neither was Adam. Today is the 30th anniversary of his disappearance. To the Steins, the wounds are still fresh. They refuse to decorate their yard, despite all the houses on the street going out of their way to be as festive as possible. They don't give out candy, despite the rest of the houses on the street trying to one-up each other by giving out better loot than their neighbors. The Steins mourn quietly in their dark house, the television being the only light emanating from their window. Kids are advised by their parents not to knock. I've always felt bad for them. I've lived here for 40 years. I remember the frantic search and rescue efforts that swept through our town. Even though I was barely 20 years old and living with my unemployed father while working double shifts to pay our mortgage, I did my part and joined the search. It was the least I could do. Like all futile searches, it ended after a while. Adam was presumed dead, the Steins grew old, and the neighborhood changed around us. New families moved in, and old ones either died off or moved out. Aside from me and the Steins, I'd say the average age of the homeowners here is 35, and they all have lots of kids. A terrible rumor started to spread a couple years ago. I know who started it, an older kid named Chuck Demopoulos. He told his younger brothers and neighborhood friends that Adam's ghost haunts the woods behind our street. He said Mr. Stein killed him and chopped him up into little bits. When I learned about the rumor, I was disgusted. The disrespect was so vulgar and uncalled for. I prayed the Steins wouldn't hear about it, but I'm sure they must have. It was pervasive. I called Chuck's father and told him what I heard, and I suspect Chuck caught a beating for it. Still, I'm afraid the damage had already been done. Despite pitying the Steins, my phone is like dying, and it spooked me for a second because it just flashed, and I was like, who's texting me at midnight? Happy November 1st, everyone. Despite pitying the Steins, I don't express my sympathy by refusing to decorate my house and yard. I love Halloween. Always have. I like to see parents beaming from the street while their kids nervously ring doorbells and collect piles of candy. The spirit of the season keeps me feeling young, despite being well past my prime and having to deal with high blood pressure. How does that feel? Being an old-timer has its perks sometimes. I have Halloween decorations they don't sell anymore. Ghoulish stuff, like hangman's nooses. Things that are too politically incorrect for stores to sell. I firmly believe Halloween shouldn't be sanitized. It should be scary and unsettling. That said, there needs to be an emotional component too, not just blood and guts for the sake of blood and guts. There needs to be poignancy, something that'll stick with you after you see it. That's why Adam helps me decorate. After Dad died in 1989, I emptied out his safety deposit box. There was an envelope with a note, with a note and a Polaroid photograph. All the note said was, "I caught him snooping around the cellar. I had to teach him a lesson." The photograph was of fresh cement drying on the basement wall. In the middle of the night, I went into the cellar and opened the wall. Adam's body was inside. My instinctive reaction was to call the police, but I was terrified to be arrested. They'd never believe the note. So I sealed the wall. After a while, I stopped thinking about the dead boy in the bowels of my house. Many years later, after talking with Miss Stein about Adam on a Halloween afternoon, I knew what I had to do. I took his remains out of the wall in 2014. He was only a skeleton. I separated the bones, splashed them with fake blood, and incorporated them into my Halloween decorations. At first, I was worried. As the days went by, though, I realized I didn't need to be concerned. The bones blended in with the rest of my decorations. Just more festive material and a neighborhood chock full of it. This morning, when I went out to get the paper, Mr. Stein was doing the same. We met in the street and chatted for a while. We talked about the Cowboys game from last night. He mentioned his wife made a spectacular coffee cake that he'd bring me a piece of later. I smiled and told him that would be real nice. Before we parted ways, Mr. Stein said, "I never told you how much Shannon and I appreciated all the help you gave us back when we lost Adam. We knew how busy you were. It's been 30 years today, you know. 30 years. I felt guilt and sadness wash over me. I'm sure he's in a better place, I told him. He nodded. I saw tears in his eyes. He was a good boy. I know wherever he is watching over us. We hugged briefly and then back to our respective homes. I walked up the driveway, past the ghosts dangling from my trees by their nooses, and headed up my front steps. I looked at the skull hanging above the doorway. It was pointing at the Steins' house, watching. This is a real solid spoop right there. And then there's like a link to Unsettling Stories. And it's just more Unsettling Stories. I think everything's working fine. Everything's working dandy. Why is my phone blinking? What is this? What is this it's doing here? Good night, Kibbs, and then someone saying something that's worth 50 cents, whatever. Nothing important. I want to see what this scariest birthday tape I've ever seen is. It's apparently a series. He links to part 1. That's a very useful. Thank you. And part 1 links to part 2. This is going to be a much longer one. And let me just make sure everything's working before we get into this. There's like a fly buzzing next to my fan. Alright. So, I'm a little freaked out right now, so I'll already apologize for the eventual grammar mistakes I'll commit. Also, English is not my first language, so please don't be hard on me, guys. Anyway, 6 months ago, my Uncle Arthur died in a car accident involving a large truck and booze. It wasn't pretty. Arthur was my father's older and only brother, so it was really hard for us. Even for my mother, who was really close to Dad's family. I couldn't even go to class for the first weeks after the accident since my mind was devastated. I loved my Uncle Arthur too much. He was that kind of uncle who would do things your parents would never allow, like smoking a cigarette with you when you're 17. My parents would be so mad at me, and especially at him if they ever knew that. Or buying you Playboy magazines when you're 12 years old. That's a little extreme. Don't get me wrong here. He never wanted to make me addicted, nor was he some kind of pervert. He was just a good person who liked to be that cool relative from time to time. Now, for the recent events. As you guys can see, Arthur was a big part of my life. The man has been one of my role models since I was a child. In an attempt to see him again, or to remember things I'd forgotten about him, I decided to check the videos of one of his birthday parties, the last one that got recorded in 2012. I knew this party got recorded because I remember one of his friends with a camera walking all over the place, recording everything. I've contacted my grandma, Dad's mom Cecilia, and asked her if I could search for the party videos in her computer. I knew she wouldn't be able to find those by herself, and even if she did so, she wouldn't know how to send them to me via Facebook or email, because, old people. If there was one person in the family who had those videos, it would be Grandma Cece. So I took a few hours of my day to go there and search for them in her computer. She kept telling me how everybody in our family sent her videos and pictures of all of our relatives in her email. Yet she doesn't know how to send them. She can only receive and download them. Anyway, after a few minutes scrolling through a bunch of folders containing pictures from the 50s to 2016, it's a lot, finally found the one I was looking for. Uncle Arthur's birthday party in March 2012. For my surprise, it contained 32 pictures and only one video. After seeing the pics and having flashbacks of that day, I decided to send me the video via email so I could watch it at my place and remember my uncle in a private way, in case I'd break down in tears. I didn't want Granny to see that. So in the night time of the very same day, I've decided to watch the 29-minute video, ready to see my uncle alive again, laughing, telling jokes, celebrating his 48th birthday. So I did. Well, at first. The video started with some 8 people in the backyard of Uncle Otto. Uncle Otto is actually Dad's cousin, so he went us home for the party. It's a sunny day and everybody is drinking beers. Uncle Arthur is there with my father, whose name is George, by the way, and some friends. I got a bit emotional in the very beginning of the video, but then something weird happened, although I almost didn't notice it at first. The camera guy, named Andy, climbed some 3 or 4 steps to get inside the house without even shaking the camera. Like he was holding the camera so you can't see his face on the shooting, and got inside the house like he was already on the same level of the door. Although there is some difference of at least 15 inches, although I couldn't find any explanation for this, it barely bothered me. So the video went on. Andy got inside the house and recorded my mom and Cindy, Granny Cece, some children, and so on. Then he got the camera really close to a woman I don't know and said, "What do you wish for Arthur on his birthday?" While she was listening to the question, you could see a weird look on her face, like she's getting confused more and more. She then said, "Well, I hope you're happy, Arthur," and with a very fake smile, left kinda in a hurry. You can hear Andy laughing really low at this point. He then walked towards the rooms of the house, and now shit got serious. The next person approached by the camera is Andy. I got seriously confused at this time. Seriously remember Andy being the one to shoot the whole video, but apparently he wasn't. At least he wasn't in the first. And at this point of the party, I haven't arrived yet. So the camera guy approaches Andy and asks him what does he expect for the day. Andy seems seriously confused, like really being hypnotized or something. He talks very slowly, as if reading some sign from a far distance. "I hope the day goes well. For Arthur and me." Excuse me. And goes to one of the bedrooms in a hurry, which is odd. At this point, I'm seriously freaked out, but couldn't help but watch it. The video then has a cut, and next thing it shows is the bedroom. I believe is the same one Andy has gotten to earlier. The camera then leaves the room, and someone says, "Hey, Andy," to which the camera guy replies, "Hey." So now Andy is using the camera, which raises the obvious question. Who was operating the camera before? We'll get into that later. Andy then talks to some people and continues to shoot the party. Uncle Arthur appears again, which makes my heart warm a bit. But I realized I didn't appear on the video yet, although my parents can be seen from time to time. Well, I'm curious about so many things at this point that I can't pick one to scare me more. So I just kept watching it. Uncle Arthur then comes to talk to Andy. He says, "Hey Andy, you alright? You can turn the camera off if you want, but you look a bit odd. You okay, bro?" To which Andy replies, "Why wouldn't I be fine? It's your day, dude. Enjoy it. I believe we'll remember this day for a long time." To which my uncle replied, "Yeah, okay then," and left somewhat confused. It was then that the video really made me shit my pants. Andy was in the backyard of the house and in front of him, and of the camera, obviously. There was a high wall, maybe 5 meters, 16 feet, separating the neighbor's yard. Well, I know how absurd it may sound, but the camera just got higher than the wall and went further into the neighbor's yard. It just got 5 meters high. The camera wasn't through up. It was like the person, or whatever that was holding the camera became inhumanly taller, went over the wall and took a few steps over there, at natural height now. I paused it. I didn't know if I wanted to keep watching it. Of course I did. The next scene comes from the bathroom of Uncle Otto's house. I don't know what the person holding the camera, I'm not sure if I can call it Andy anymore, did at the neighbor's place, for the video was cut after the wall part. The person now goes to the living room again, but at this point, nobody really noticed it. Nobody looks at the camera, not even a glance. The sound of the party seems distant. Only an indistinguishable chat can be heard, and yes, no me in the party yet. Uncle Arthur can be seen sitting by himself outside of the house and crying. He is literally crying, putting his hands on his face and shit. I couldn't remember this. I thought he was so happy that day. My parents are not seen anymore on the video. Actually, I realized at this point that nobody in this party is recognizable anymore. Only strangers. Even Uncle Otto, the owner of the house, or his wife are seen. What? The sounds are getting weirder, like they are getting really far from the camera. They seem to be getting slower and slower. The video then goes to its final scene. A man I don't know smiling in a very exaggerated way to the camera in a dark room and saying, "Shh. Hey, Arthur. Arthur, I hope you like my present. I hope you get it all. I hope it." And then it ends. Fuck. How can I even begin to react after watching this shit? I immediately called my father and asked him about this party. The talk went over like this. So to make this simpler, I'm going to hold up this hand for the protagonist and this hand for Dad. Hey Dad, remember when Arthur's birthday party in Uncle Otto's place back in 2012? Sure, Chris, I was there. Why? So you took me and Mom too, right? Well, let me see. I remember taking your mom, but I'm not sure you were there. You know how your Uncle Art liked to party. Me and your mom were always a bit concerned about taking you there too much. Anyway, what is this about? You see, I really remember being there. I remember you hugging and giving Uncle Art a Beatles LP as a present. I'm sure I was there. Anyway, I just got a video of the party with Grandma Cece in her place, and I can't find myself in it. There are tons of creepy stuff in the video, too. I can't even begin to describe it to you. I think it would be better if you'd watch it. Whoa, wait there, buddy. What kind of creepy stuff? Now, if I remember well, I'm pretty sure you stayed at your friend Danny that night. Yes, I remember your mom saying she couldn't take you to Otto's house, especially because of his crazy neighbor who ended up killing himself some days later. I remember it now. You definitely weren't at that party, son. Okay. There's too much going on for me to discuss it. One last thing. What happened to Andy? You know, Uncle Art's friend. I have no idea. I was never close to him. Was he involved in some of the creepy stuff in the video? Sorta. Anyway, when you get home, I'll show you the video. Thanks a lot, Dad. So, next thing I did was to try and find out about Andy. I went to Uncle Arthur's Facebook. It's still there, so people can post on his wall how much they miss him and stuff. And search for Andy in his friends list, and it wasn't hard for me to find it. He was there. What really shocked me was that he died too. People were posting morning messages on his wall too. Scroll down to check the first one, have an idea about when he died exactly. Of course, some of you guys already realized he died on the same day as Uncle Arthur. Apparently he had a heart attack in his place in a town not so far from here. I was so frightened and yet so curious that I decided to check the pictures of the party once again, and for my surprise, now I could see things I haven't realized the first time. In the pics that Andy appeared, he was always turning his back to the camera. All of them. The second thing I've noticed was on the presents. In one pic, there was a large amount of birthday presents in a table, and in one of them, there was this box that read, "Don't solve the mystery," and it was in the exactly middle of the pic, like the camera was focusing on it on purpose. Guys, I'm so freaked out, I don't know what to do. I've decided I won't try to solve it, but from time to time, I get myself thinking about it and trying to find solutions for it, like unconsciously. Fortunately, my parents didn't really care for it. Like, they even watched it, then I showed it to them, but they weren't really impressed and created some lame excuses for me to forget about it too. My mom was even more aggressive about it, which left me confused. Anyway, I'm so freaked out I need to tell this to someone who might believe me. Thanks for reading it, guys. So that's part one. I guess I'll go ahead and do part two. And I'll... Full size. I'm looking to see what else is there. He's still at the door. Alex always forgot. False candy bars. I found these on a forum. I've been in a cult for 14 years. We Were Gods and Best Original Monster 2014. That's interesting. What is that? What's Best Original Monster 2014? Pretty Girl. Found a letter from next Halloween. This happened at the cemetery we're on Halloween. The Deer Pond. An RV in the woods. Don't ever take your eyes off your children this Halloween. Not for 1 second. No more night shift. Object lessons. There's a man in a sweater and he won't go away. 1 year later. We don't do Halloween. Baby fever. Is it a bad thing my womb only makes girls? What the freak? So I guess I'll do part two. It's pretty. It's not that long. I'd say it's about close to as long as the last one. So let's just do it. 90% upvoted. Wow, thank you guys for reading what I've written. It's great to know that you guys take me seriously. And regarding the mystery around my uncle's party, I have some new information I'd like to share with you. So I've decided I could try to understand a bit more about the deaths surrounding the party, Arthur's, Andy, and the neighbors. And with that, I'd learn more about the tape and so on. I've asked my father and mother about the guy at the end of the video, you know, the one with the exaggerated smile. He's a bald guy with a black short beard and looks apparently to be in his 40 years old. Mom and Dad said they didn't know him and insisted I'd forget about it. After all, my uncle is dead anyway, and digging deeper into it won't bring him back. What did I do next? Of course, I went to Grandma Cecilia. As soon as my class ended, I went to her place. After eating some cookies she offered me, I asked her if she could help me with something, which she said yes, of course. So I told her about the video and told her that she had it in her computer, where I got it, and asked if she could help me finding some answers. She said in the same instant, "I'm sure I don't know anything that you already know." I'm sure I don't know anything that you already know, but I insisted anyway. I feel like that's wrong. She didn't seem shocked with the camera movements, with the people talking in a weird way to the cameraman. Maybe they were drugged. Actually, she didn't seem shocked by anything. Just kept saying that she couldn't help me, but I wasn't going to give up easily. Then the bald guy appeared. I'm not sure if it was just a confirmation bias, but I was pretty sure she got a bit uneasy when he appeared on the video. I asked her, "Who's that guy, Granny?" To which she replied she didn't know. I insisted, "I know there's something wrong here. My parents won't tell me anything. They keep telling me to just drop it already, which makes it obvious that they know something I don't. And I'm pretty sure you do. You do it too. You do too." She then touched her glasses as if to see better. "If I tell you, will you please leave it?" To which I agreed, of course. She then started this long monologue, to which I've tried to transcribe the best I could. "Well, this boy over there is called Oliver Dant, and he was a friend of your Uncle Arthur. They grew up together. He used to come to our house a lot when he was a kid. He and Arthur were inseparable. They even went to the same college, but it was there that things got wrong. You see, in college, Oliver started to, discover more about himself. He started to express his feelings better. Well, not better, but more, at least. I know all of this because your uncle used to tell everything when he was young. He used to call me every day, 'My boy Arthur.' Anyway, apparently he was madly in love with your uncle. God knows since when. But he was a very confused boy, He wasn't able to deal with my son's rejection. At this point, Granny started to look up and began to talk like I wasn't even there anymore. She was talking to herself. So he even dropped college. He couldn't bear the fact that Arthur wasn't his, that he had his girlfriends. Art even became more distant from him. He was very annoyed by Oliver. I remember him telling me through the phone that Oliver used to call him crying, saying he needed Arthur. Oh, poor boy. After the dropped college, Arthur was grateful. He did feel bad, but it was impossible to keep on dealing with that situation. But that wasn't the end. Far from it. Very far from it. One day, we found out that Oliver had tried to commit suicide in his room with a rope. Poor boy. He didn't have any parents. His grandparents raised him, but they were already dead at that time, so he didn't have anyone, because he started to lose all his friends after his obsession. I then went to his house to have a conversation with him. What I saw there just made me dizzy. Through the window, I could see lots of food on his floor, empty boxes, objects, and garbage just all over his floor. Nobody answered, so I took a deep breath and entered the house. I wasn't surprised it wasn't locked. I took very slow steps, looking at all directions, but couldn't see him. I climbed the stairs and got to his bedroom. I was frightened. He had at least some 90 or even 100 pictures of my son, and many, many drawings of him as well. I don't know if he'd taken all these pictures or if he stole from art. They were all over his wall. There were some words written on the floor and the walls, too, in a language I didn't know, perhaps Latin. When I left the room, I was able to take a look at the other room with the open door. There were some 20 present boxes, all wrapped up in a beautiful way. I left there in a hurry, too scared to wait for him to come. Nobody heard from him until some months later, when he finally managed to kill himself, but this time jumping in a river. His body was found some days later. We all thought that it was finally over, but it was far from it. Things just got worse. At this time, she took off her glasses and looked at me for the first time in minutes. She said, "If you haven't seen the video of the party, you wouldn't believe what I'm going to tell you, but I'll think it will make sense to you now." A few years later, when we all had forgotten about him, your uncle, who was living with me again, told me he'd had a very real dream about Oliver. In the dream, he said something about getting back together with Arthur, and that he had a present for him, which he didn't say what it was. Some days later, some strange things started to happen. Those cliche things like objects that appear when you didn't leave them, low whispers in the house and all. He finally told your uncle about Oliver's room and all the pics. Arthur got a bit mad at me for not telling him this for so long and decided to check if his house was still empty. Well, it wasn't. Andy lived there. You know Andy, he's in the video, right? Your uncle asked Andy about anything unusual when he bought the place, to which he replied promptly, "Oh yeah, there was some weird stuff going on around here before I moved in. For instance, the weird symbols drawn over the floor, it looked like some kind of magic thing, some fucked up drawings too, with stars, heads, hearts and all. If I wasn't such a skeptical guy myself, I wouldn't have moved in there at all." Arthur then asked if he knew anything about the previous owner, to which he said, "Oh, that guy Oliver, right? Yeah, he came here a few times too, see the place where he grew up. One guy, he gives me the creeps, especially because of the drawings he did in the house, and he never told me what did they mean." At this point, my granny's voice became weaker. I could feel she was scared. She said, I and just went to her bedroom. I figured I've demanded too much from such an old lady, so I've decided to leave it for now, but I'll come back later for more answers. I've decided I'll confront my parents when I'll have more data to confront them. Otherwise, they'll probably just tell me Granny is senile and, of course, tell me to leave it. So, that's the end of part 2. Apparently there is a part 3. I'm probably gonna end this here. It's been close to 30 minutes. I was planning on going an hour, but it is 12:20 now. Halloween's over. I think it was a fine way to send off Halloween. You know, it was something for me to try out. If you enjoyed this, maybe I'll do it again. Maybe I won't, but let me know if you enjoyed it. And I don't have anything wrong with doing it again. Thanks for watching. Happy Halloween, everyone.